Hello, Brian Keeler here. I'm working on a drawing of a piece of sculpture by the French artist Clodion, and it's part of this series. This is part 2 of my series of sketching and drawing from sculpture. And this one is a drawing. I'm making a distinction between sketching and drawing. The sketching I think of as more spontaneous and quick studies. They were done in 10 to 20 minutes. And this one has taken several days, and my purpose for showing you this is to show you how a drawing can become more detailed and more articulated and more fully realized. I'm going to show you a series of studies, or the sequence that this painting took. And the first one that you're going to see is the contour drawing, and that's the way it started out. It started out with pencil. I'm using a 4B or a 6B graphite pencil that you're probably accustomed to, and this contour drawing is somewhat the way the Renaissance artists would start their fresco studies, and they would put these contour drawings down on top of the frescoes. So that's stage 1. Stage 2 is the drawing with some value added, and so I'm breaking it down into patterns of light and dark, and starting with pencil. And then the next one that you'll see is where I've started with charcoal. I've started using compressed charcoal as opposed to vine charcoal. And this last one that you're seeing, stage 4, is where I've started to push the darks even darker and add white highlights with pastel. And now I'm going to show you a series of artworks by historical artists who are doing the same thing that I'm doing here. And the first one is by the Pennsylvania Impressionist Daniel Garber, and it's of a sculpture in the Medici Chapel in Florence. And I've sketched the same piece of sculpture a number of times. So it shows other artists studying the famous pieces of sculpture to derive the lessons and benefits from them. The second one is a wonderful drawing by Seurat, Georges Seurat, the post-impressionist painter that you may know from his famous painting, The Island of La Grande Jatte. And the reason I have this here is because it has no blending. It's on a piece of paper with a lot of tooth, and it lends itself to his impressionist style. And the third one is a painting by Leonardo da Vinci, a drawing by Leonardo da Vinci called The Virgin and Saint Anne. And once again, it's similar to what I'm doing here, of using chiaroscuro, light and dark, and pushing the light and dark patterns. And the last one that I'm showing you is a beautiful drawing by Prud'hon, and he's a 19th century French artist, and it's beautifully broken down into light and dark patterns. And it has this core of the shadow, which is the dark area in between the light and the dark patterns. So that's what you're looking at now. And there's also some reflected light coming back in, and that is what makes the nice division of the two sources of light. I'm going to work on that idea of the core of the shadow. So if you come on in close here. Before I do that, I thought I'd just show you my materials. This is a piece of compressed charcoal here. That's what I'm using. I'm also going to be using this stump. It's a paper that's been rolled and used for blending in detailed areas. And I'm also going to be using a filbert paintbrush for blending, and a charcoal pencil. They used to be called carbon pencils. So they're my tools. So I'm going to work on this. Right here is this core of this shadow here. And I'm blending here with this stump to sort of soften the edges and make the transition to go around the form is what we're trying to do. So we always have to be thinking of where the edges are sharp, where they're crisp, and where they're soft. And as we're doing this, we want to go with the contour of the form. It's not like we're doing a uniform cylinder or something like that. We want to think of it as following the form and describing the form and articulating the form. There's a couple other places where this core of the shadow comes. if you come in close to the nose right here, what we have here is a reflected light bouncing up, and then this core of the shadow right here, which I'm endeavoring to soften right now. So we get this idea of core of the shadow, light core, and then reflected light. And we can see that down here on the model's jawline. So we have reflected light, which is bouncing up from the arm, the core of the shadow, and then going back towards the transitions of halftone right here. I'm going to use also, I don't know if I pointed this out, as a kneaded eraser. And I'm using this kneaded eraser to soften that transition. And so the idea here is to make it gradual and soft to go around the corner. I'm going to go over to the male model here now, and I'm using this kneaded eraser to lift out some of the lights, and I'm doing it with kind of strokes that go with the plane of the nose here to add some luminosity. And here's another place where I can lift off some lights, because the light would be coming back up here to illuminate the arch of his eye. And right here I'm taking a little bit of artistic liberty. I was working from a terracotta statue, a photograph of a terracotta statue, so he didn't actually have you know, that reflected light, that glint of integrity, as it's called there, in the eye. And so this tool comes in handy. And I just thought I'd show you the brush technique. And the brush is to solidify and soften values in these areas here. And it's sort of the opposite of the sketch technique. It's sort of softening, blending, and fusing the values right there. Okay, if I'm going to do one more thing here with a pencil, I periodically would use a pencil. In fact, as you saw in the beginning stages, it started off with all pencil work, and the pencil adds a kind of lighter, more nuanced value than the deep charcoal. And then the final stage was to put these highlights on. And the way that I put the highlights on is to sort of stroke them like an artist chiseling. Like if you think of Michelangelo's drawings in his sculpture, he drew like he was chiseling, like I'm doing here right now, going around the form. And so the brushwork or the pencil work echoes the contour and the roundness of the model and the sculpture in this case. And if you come down here to the leg, you can see that I've done it here with more spontaneous types of strokes. And we can do it over here on this part of her upper thigh. So I like the idea of the strokes going with it. And you can see it, I've done it here with a charcoal pencil to kind of indicate the roundness of the... And so I'm using a combination of blending and then adding strokes. So I think that's about the main things that I wanted to share with you here, is taking these sculptures and taking the drawings to more of a complete sense of resolution and sense of completion and finish. So thanks so much for your attention.